Kakadosh Erev Tov, Kinyan Masechta. We are doing the Hazara, that which we learned, Dalet Amud 4b. Right? If you remember, we just mentioned on 3 lines down, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda comes and he says, the one that is going in front of the Teva. Yom Tov Acharon Shel Chag, on the Yom Tov Acharon Chag, Acharon Maskir, Rishon Maskir. The last one is going to mention it. Mashiv Roch Min Geshem, the first one is not going to mention. Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach, the first day of Yom Tov Pesach. The first one is going to mention, right? Mashiv Roch Min Geshem. The last one is going to mention Mori the Tab, as they do Tikkun Tab. Says the Gemara, or mean we have a contradiction. What is the contradiction? The Mishnah later on, the Peh Amud Aleph, says the Mishnah, Matai Shoalim Tekeshayim. Until when are they going to come ask for rain? Ad Matai Shoalim Tekeshamim. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Ad She'avor Pesach, until Pesach passes by, which means usually Chol HaMoed, meaning you have all of Chol HaMoed, and you're still saying V'tenel Marta V'racha. Rabbi Meir Omer, Rabbi Meir says, Ad She'avor Nisan, until the entire Nisan passes by. So the Gemara is saying, one second, it's a contradiction. You just told me that it's until She'avor Pesach, which means until also Chol HaMoed, and you told me on Bet Amud Aleph that it's until the first day of Pesach, but not afterwards. And answers are for Gemara. First answer, Amar Rav Chasta. Says Rav Chasta, La Kashia. It's not a question. Kal Nishol, Kal Laskir. One of them is to ask for rain, and one of them to mention rain. Mishal Shai Ve'azil. Right? You could continue asking. Once you've already said, you continue asking. But once it means to mention, Yom Tov Rishon Posek. Yeah, Pasik. On the first day of Yom Tov, you stop. Amar Ula comes and he says, what are you talking about? Had Rav Chasta Kashya. That which Rav Chasta just said is a question. Kahometz lashinayim, veke'ashan la'enayim. It's vinegar to the teeth and it's smoke to the eyes. Why? It's kal v'chomer. Uma b'makom she'eno sho'el maskin. If in a place where you're not going to ask, when don't you ask? On Shemini Atzeret, you do not ask, but you do mention Gevurot Keshamim. So b'makom she'shoel, in a place where you are going to ask, which is going to be Chol HaMoed Pesach, eno din she'eh maskin. Kal v'chomer, then you should mention it. You should say Mashiv Roch Min Geshem. So says the Ula says, no, you're right. You know what it is? It's two Tanaim alibad Rabbi Yehuda. Says second answer. Rav Yosef. Says Rav Yosef. What do you mean Ad She'avor Pesach? You know what it means Ad She'avor Pesach? Ad She'avor She'ech Tzibur Rishon Hayored Yom Tov Rishon Shabbat. It means until Ya'avor the She'ech Tzibur on the first day of Pesach. Meaning the first time that the She'ech Tzibur comes and he does She'ech Tzibur on Pesach, that's Ad She'avor Pesach. Doesn't mean Chol HaMoed. Ad She'avor Pesach, he's going to come and he's going to be Shoalim Ageshamim. Says the Gemara, Amar le'Abai, Abai says, She'elav Yom Tovika. Ribbono Shel Olam, it's Tefilah Yom Tov. Amidah Yom Tov does not have V'tentel Matal Bracha or V'ten Bracha or anything, but it doesn't have all that. So what are you talking about now? When are you going to start asking V'tentel Matal Bracha until the first day of Pesach? Because what it means, Ad She'avor Pesach, doesn't mean Chol HaMoed. It means Ad She'avor She'ech Tzibur on the first day of Pesach. On the first day of Pesach, there's no V'tentel Matal Bracha. What are you talking about? So says the Gemara, Elmaleh, Rav Yosef tells Abaye, what are you talking about? In there is Shoel Meturgeman. The Meturgeman is coming and he's asking during the Dirasha, during Yom Tov, he's asking for rain. And he's saying, so ask the Gemara, Abaye says, the Meturgeman, the translator, is going to ask for something that we don't need. The translator is supposed to come and ask for things that we need, not things that we don't need. So it says the Gemara, we are going back and answering like Ula. What was the answer of Ula? Okay, next. Rabbi now comes and he says a third answer. Remember, we had Rav Chasta pushed off by Ula. We had Rav Yosef pushed off by Abaye. We answered again like Ula. And then again we have Rabbi. Now it's going to be pushed off again by Abaye. And it's going to be like Ula. Rabbi comes and he says, what does it mean Ad She'avor Pesach? Remember, the next Mishnah on Amud Aleph had Ad She'avor Pesach and Rabbi Yehuda. So there had to be something of Rabbi Yehuda here with Ad She'avor Pesach. So he says, Ad She'avor Pesach, Ad She'avor Zman She'haitat Pesach. Until the Korban Pesach. The Korban Pesach was slaughtered. When was the Korban Pesach slaughtered? on Chatzot of Erev Pesach. On Chatzot, midday of Erev Pesach, that's when you started doing the sacrifices. They did it until nighttime, and then they were able to eat it until Chatzot Laila. Okay? So when it says over here, right, Ad she'yavor zman shechitat Pesach, it means that until Chatzot, which was on Erev Pesach. Why? Says the Gemara, just like at the beginning, so to the end. Matchilato maskid, just like at the beginning, we're going to mention it, even though you're not going to ask, which means Shemini Atzeret, what do you do? Shemini Atzeret, what do you do on Shemini Atzeret? Shemini Atzeret, you're maskid velo shoel. So to Tzuav, so forth, so to the end, the same thing. You're going to be maskid even though you're not shoel. Elmaleh, Abai said, what are you talking about? It's good at the beginning, you're going to mention it. Because when you're going to mention it, that in itself is she'ela, which means when you're doing haskara is she'ela. You're asking it, right? Why? Because when you want to be minatzeh, you want that Hashem should answer us, so that's what you're going to do. But towards the end, my ritzu she'ela ika. What ritzu she'ela is there? But rather, we're retracting, we're going back like the answer of Ula. What was the answer of Ula? Amar Rabbi Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Says Rabbi Asi in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Halacha Rabbi Yehuda. What does that mean, the halacha like Rabbi Yehuda? That we mention it on Tfilat Musaf of Shemini Atzeret. Which means here we're giving you psak halacha. The psak halacha, if you remember the Mishnah, there was a three-way machloket, right? You had, it wasn't really a three-way machloket, but it was like a three-way machloket. We had the Yom HaRishon, right? We had Shemini Atzeret. Then we had, even in Shemini Atzeret, if you remember, we said Shachrit or Musaf. You understand? And we kept up, we had a lot of different shitot. We had Rabbi Yutam Metzera, we had the second day, we had Rabbi Akiva, we had many different shitot. If you remember, we had Arvit, we had Shachrit. You remember when we did all that Gemara? That was also Chazara. I should give you guys that as a test. Yeah? How many shitot were there? You remember we did a Chazara on it. We said how many different shitot were there? There was Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Ben Betera. There was Rabbi Yehuda Ben Betera. You remember all those shitot? We came and we said that there was how many shitot? There was Rabbi Yehuda Ben Betera in the Mishnah. There was Ben Betera. Then you remember all these things?
Yeah. In the beginning.
Fine. Okay. And Lina, remind me. We'll have to do a Chazara also. That will be the next test. No, all this
from the beginning.
We're gonna have to do it again, and until you know, you know your name. You know your name. So Ravasi comes and he says the name of Yochanan. The halacha is like of Yudah. Then when are we going to start? Musaf av Shemini Atzeret. Elmaleh Rabbi Zera le Ravasi says Rabbi Zera to Rabbi Asi. Umiyamar Rabbi Yochanan hachi. Does Rabbi Yochanan actually say that the halacha is like of Yudah? Which means that we're going to start on Musaf of Shmini Atzeret. But now we have a Mishnah. We have another Mishnah. Where is it? Daf Yod Amud Aleph. Yod Amud Aleph. So now it's 10a1. I love Dafka 1, but 10a. On 10a, says a Mishnah, Bishlosha b'Mar Cheshvan, Sho'alin et Geshamim. On the 3rd of Mar Cheshvan, you're going to ask for rain. What is asking? The 10 Tal umatar livracha. Okay? With 10 tal umatar livracha. Rabban Gamliel Omer, the Shivabo. Rabban Gamliel says on the 7th. Amar Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Elazar, halacha ke Rabban Gamliel. The halacha is like Rabban Gamliel, which means that you're going to ask until the 7th of Mar Cheshvan. So therefore, if right now to do with askara, you're asking, right? Because it's mashma that what? That the zmanei askara v'she'ela selamim shos. Meaning we understand that it's the exact same thing. So therefore, how does Rabbi Yochanan paskin like Rabbi Yehuda that it's going to be Shmini Atzeret if right now he just said that halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel that it's Shavi'i of Cheshvan? Where is the Shavi'i Cheshvan? Elmaleh. One second. What?
For outside Israel.
Well, exactly, for outside of Israel. No, for inside Israel. Sorry. For inside of Israel, this is machlok. Because outside of Israel, 60 days after the tkufa. Yeah? So says the Gemara, I don't understand the question. Why? Elmaleh, he comes and he says the first answer. Somebody just answered. David was the second answer. But the first answer, before David's answer, Elmaleh gavra karamit. You're asking a contradiction between one person and another person. Why? Why are you going to come and ask a contradiction? Who was the one that said that halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda? What's his name? Who is the one that says? Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan says halacha is like who? Like Rabbi Yehuda. What does Rabbi Yehuda say? You're going to say Mashiach Baruch Hu Geshem when? Shemini atzeret musaf of Shemini atzeret. What's the second one? Second one is Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar says that the halacha is like Rabban Gamliel. What does Rabban Gamliel say? Rabban Gamliel comes and he says that it's on the 7th of Mar Cheshvan. What are you coming and asking in contradiction? That's like I'm going to come and I'm going to tell you, by the way, right? How could you come and you tell me, right, that the halacha is like Rabbi Elmaleh in this? Yeah, but Rabbi Koska says that. Now, 1 second. But it's two different people. If it's two different people, what are you asking a contradiction? There's no contradiction. It could be that maybe he holds A and he holds B. What's the problem? What are you asking a contradiction? That's question number one, right? Sorry, that's not question. That's kilu. That is a question. It's like a question that we don't understand what's going on. Another question is, if you want, you can answer. And this is what David asked. He says, La kashia, kan lishol, kan laskir. He says, what are you talking about? One of them is laskir. Our Mishnah on Bet Amud Aleph. Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, halacha zak Rabbi Yehuda. That is when? Laskir. Here we're talking about she'elah. Again, one more time. Shosham mechashvan. Shoalin et geshamim. Rabbi Gamliel omer, beshiva bo. Amar halacha Rabbi Gamliel. It's talking about she'elah. So what are you saying exactly? So says the Gemara, that's not true. Why? How are we going to push off David's answer? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, b'makom sheshoel maskir. When are you going to, meaning it's exact same zman, right? That means whenever you're going to ask, you're going to mention it. Answers the Gemara, no. Hahu le'afsaka itman. Meaning when you're finishing. Meaning when you start first with maskir, and later on you're going to come, you're going to be lishol, you're going to ask. But when you're finishing, that's when you're finishing at the same time. No, but that's when you're finishing at the same time. Meaning when we said that the time is the same, asking and mentioning, it's a finishing time is the same, asking and finishing, but not the start time. To make it sound a little bit better, the question, the original question, before we answer Gavra Karamit, here in the footnote, he says something actually beautiful. And it's based upon the Ritva that Rabbi Elazar was the Talmid of Rabbi Yochanan. So since he was the Talmid of Rabbi Yochanan, so therefore, but before. You remember we said, we have a contradiction. So what's the contradiction? One is with his rabbi. No. So we thought at the beginning, though, that if he says halacha like Rabbi Gamliel, obviously where did he hear from? From Rabbi Yochanan. So that's why we were asking the skira. Right now we understand a little bit clearer why we were asking a contradiction. Because Rabbi Elazar is a student of Rabbi Yochanan. So if Rabbi Elazar says halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan, it means it's like Rabbi Gamliel. That means that's what he holds. That means that's what he heard from his rabbi. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan, one place is telling you the halacha is like, what's it called, Rabbi Yehuda, and then another place he's telling you the halacha is like what? It's like exactly. So what are you doing? So comes and he says, right? No, he says Gavra Karami. What does that mean? Sometimes it happens that a student could argue on the rabbi. It all depends on the circumstances. So because of that, maybe Be'emet there's going to be two different halachot. That's going to be one way of looking at it. Another thing also is, how did you understand here when it says La kashia kan lishol vekan laskir? One is talking about to ask, and one of them is talking about laskir. At the end of the day, right, it's never going to be exactly the same thing. So he comes and he says, Ve'amar Rabbi Yochanan. So we asked, what was the havamina? Right?